Hello and welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland Preview Podcast. I'd like to say that things have improved since our last episode, but a 3-3 draw with Accrington combined with another 1-0 defeat at home to Blackpool means that we're pretty much clinging on for dear life in the hope just to make the playoffs. But there is 2 more games left and then potentially playoffs, and one win would definitely secure that playoff spot, and our first shot at doing that will come with a big trip away to Plymouth Argyle this Saturday. And to discuss what we're up against this weekend is huge Plymouth Argyle fan and of course writer for the Herald, Stephen. Stephen, how are you doing, mate? Are you all right?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for having me on.
No, not a problem at all. First things first, you've came back into League One this season. You went out of it, came back into it, and you've got 2 games to go, same as us. You currently sit 18th. No chance of going straight back down, so no Northampton, no Swindon. How would you sum up the season?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a weird one. I think it's, an outcome that if you'd asked any Argyle fan at the start of the season that what would have happened, they would have bet your hand off for it in terms of survival. I don't think anyone's under any illusion that Argyle's main aim for the season was to be playing League One football the season after. It's not a repeat of 18-19, for example, which went down on the last day, for example. So yeah, certainly mission accomplished in what has been a freak year. Amid COVID and things like that. And I think, for a club like Plymouth size as well, the bigger perspective has always been, the fact that the club's still afloat, but there's not been anyone kind of gone out of business and things like that. So big picture as well, but certainly even looking at league performance and stuff like that, it's been, job done in terms of an Argyle point of view. There's a really interesting podcast, the Ornstein and Chapman podcast in The Athletic, where our chairman was on it recently. And, Argyle's ambition seems to be, bigger than a season at a time, as many clubs are as well. So, initially it's just job done, move on to next year. But certainly a mixed bag in terms of results, performances, a lot really for Argyle.
Because of the way that you were sort of pushing, if I remember rightly, not too long ago, sort of the outside of the playoffs, and we all know what this league can be like, a couple of wins, a couple of defeats, and you can zoom all around the league, but you weren't too far off the playoffs. Did that raise expectations ever so slightly that you could do better than just staying up?
Yes, I mean, I think there was a time around January, February where we're really getting to a good run of results together, and I think like anyone, you get hopeful you can do a la Wickham, for example, and push your way forward. However, I also think, with a slightly, less green-tinted specs on it and looking at it logically, the way that Argyle came up, the signings that we've had, it was to be realistic about it. Of course, there's the Ryan Lowe factor, and you never know, a relatively raw manager and young manager who's exciting. You always think maybe that brand of football can take us further. But I'd also think that the brand of football can lead to burnout, and I think that's what Argyle are seeing now, to be honest. You can't really blame the players for being at the beach almost now, but certainly a mixed run and a few bad results here and there. The biggest issue has always been our defence, and it has been for a couple of years, and the way we play leaves us quite open, and I think teams began to work that out, and it just saw us kind of plummet down the table. But as I say, if you'd asked any Argyle fan at the start of the season, they'd have taken this and moved on.
It's funny you mentioned about the defence, because of course, going on to recent form, which I tend to try and get the last 5 games, it's fair to say it's been some horror shows. I think you've shipped 9 goals in your last 2 and an average of 3.2 goals conceded over those last 5 games. You've alluded to it a little bit, but what's kind of gone wrong in the most recent weeks?
Yeah, I mean, the way I would sum it up actually in terms of League One is that Argyle have had a similar problem the last couple of times it came up, and that has been that the defence has remained relatively the same as to what it was in League Two, which doesn't really bode well for the season ahead. We've conceded 16 in the last 5. We've lost 9 games out of 13 or something like that. So it's been a really poor run for us. We've had a few injuries. I think there's definitely a degree of fitness, but also the way that we play can be overly exposed. Now, yes, we've had we've shipped a lot of goals, but we've also had a hell of a run of fixtures. We've had Hull and Oxford and admittedly Burton was just a sucker punch in the last minute of an equaliser. And of course, we had what I would say is a freak result at Charlton winning 6-0, where it was just like everything they touched turned to gold almost. I think looking at it, with the fixtures we had, it's certainly you wouldn't have expected us to pick up a lot, but defensively we're a bit 6s and 7s. We've got, and I think part of that as well is that Ryan Lowe's beginning to plan for next season. He's already openly said that improving defence is a priority for next season. We've got Ryan Lowe, who's a relatively young left back coming in. He was on loan at Torquay. He was called back. So I think part of it is he's tackling burnout in terms of Lowe. I think that he's tackling burnout with the selection at the back, but also he's looking to next season. As you've already said, Argyle are mathematically up. And I think it's about testing the players we have, seeing who's worthwhile, sees who's willing to fight for a place. I think that combined with a long season has really resulted in some terrible performances, mainly at the back from Argyle in recent games.
When it comes to Plymouth's defence, then I suppose there's a few ways you can sort of look at bad form, and obviously we're looking at that at the moment, and we're trying to pick reasons apart for why we're on such a bad run of form. And I think sometimes when you look at a team, you think, is it attitude? Are the players already at the beach? Is it X? Is it Y? Is it Z? Sometimes the players that you've got in your squad are just not good enough for the level that the fans want to reach. Without being disparaging towards any players from Plymouth side too much, is it a case of maybe the players that you've came up with are just not quite the standard that are required for League One level?
I wouldn't even say that it's not even the sort of... I wouldn't say it's a case of the players we have aren't good enough for a League One level. I think it's a case of we play expansive football. We attack a lot. We leave ourselves exposed at the back. And if you're going to do that, you need to have, players that are really built for that. Now, I think at League Two, you can get away with it a little bit more. Versus the clinical picking off maybe doesn't happen as much. So yes, to an extent, I think that the players have been, maybe at times not excellent. And we've got a few players that are very divisive. For example, a lot of Argyle fans don't really like Williamson. We've also got Opoku on. I think he's on loan as well. So there's a lot of players that are kind of. I feel like some of them are maybe a wee bit checked out, to be honest. Now, it's hard to be too critical of that, given the sort of the length of the season and the way it's panned out. But also, I think, as I've alluded to as well, I think a lot of teams have just become aware of how Argyle play, and you make a mistake, the higher up you go, the more likely you are to get punished for it. So I think it's a combination of things. I don't think there's anyone in particular that's letting the side down. I would never go that far from an Argyle point of view. I just think it's a case of a combination of factors against. Let's be honest, we've been playing a lot of teams that are pushing her up there. In terms of your Oxfords, for example, and Charlton to some extent as well. So, I mean, we've been playing teams that have a lot to prove, and goal difference can make a big difference. Attack to the last couple of minutes. So, yeah, it's just been a series of factors. I don't think there's a thing to exactly pinpoint. What I do think is beneficial, however, and really important, is that from an Argyle point of view, it's something that's being looked at, and Lowe's made no sort of, he's not really shied away from saying that the defence is a priority and it needs worked on, because every Argyle fan can see it. So hopefully it's something we can work on for next season. The other thing we've not had is a sort of Sonny Bradley or Curtis Nelson figure. There's not been a real central presence, I think, which we've had in the past, and it's a luxury item in the lower leagues, and it's something we came up last time with Sonny Bradley, and then he went off to Luton and we struggled. And I feel like the lower down the leagues you go, it's harder to replace some key players, especially in important positions like centre back, and I think that's been one of a legacy issue, I guess.
Talking about the one big positive from Plymouth, I think we've sort of touched on it already, but Ryan Lowe has obviously been linked and touted for a few championship jobs this season, but he has remained with Plymouth, and it was only a few years ago he was doing a remarkable job with Bury, which obviously probably got more notoriety because of what sadly eventually happened to Bury, and the reason he kind of went to Plymouth, I suppose. But I mean, the straightforward question would be, how good of a manager is Ryan Lowe, and why is he so good?
I mean, he's a very good manager. It's there's that clip that Sky I think had one of his team talks, and he's certainly got the players playing a style of football that is refreshing. It's great to watch. It's attractive to the fans. It'll fill stadiums when it's safe to do so again. So yeah, he's a very good manager. You just need to look at firstly the leaps and bounds that Argyle have came on under him, playing football. That we had Derek Adams not long ago. I mean, Christ Almighty, it was turgid. It was effective, but it was turgid. And you checked into some Argyle games and you just went, right, we might be able to grind at a draw here or sneak a 1-0. Whereas I mean, even our cup tie against Sheffield United, we played great football. There was no denying that we come, and regardless of who we're playing, we'll give them a game and we'll give it a bash. We took Huddersfield on, and yes, it was a slightly weakened Huddersfield side, but I mean, we played championship level football against the championship side. So the stuff we've been doing and the way and the progression we've came under Lowe has been terrific. There's obviously he's bought into what the club are visioning for the future, and that's been fantastic. Some of the players, especially the attacking forwards that have came forward, have been the development of them has been terrific. Luke Jeffcott, for example, is a name that needs no introduction to Football League fans, and he's really came on leaps and bounds under Lowe as well. And I think the testament to Lowe is the fact that, as you said in your initial question, when a championship job is coming, he is always there or thereabouts. And it's thanks to our chairman and the ambition of the club and the vision that is being presented to him that he's staying with Argyle. So long may it continue.
It's interesting you mentioned Jeff Cott there, because I was sort of looking earlier at his form and how much it's improved. I know he's been off the boil a little bit recently, but I looked at how he did in League Two, and I think it was something like 7 goals in 14, which is certainly not bad, but in comparison to like the 16, 17, 18 or so that he's got in the division higher is actually massive. But then I noticed he spent a little bit of time away on loan in, I think it was the Southern Football League Premier South, if it's the full name, at Truro. So obviously, over that season, that loan move and him coming back, Ryan Lowe's had an awful lot to do with his development, I would assume, and I am assuming there. But how good is he at bringing sort of your younger players through, or players that maybe have not been in the picture, and getting them playing a much higher standard of football than they were last year?
Well, yeah, I think it's obvious that the standard of football has improved, and just a small thing, and again, it's testament to Ryan Lowe, is that Jeffcott didn't have a full season with Truro. He was recalled by Lowe. They literally recalled him and said, here's your chance to shine. So, I wish I was a young footballer, but it must be absolutely disheartening if you get sent away on a loan and you're there for the entire season, and regardless of what you do, you're not going to break through. Whereas Jeffcott had, he was banging him in, and Lowe said, well, you know what, now's your chance. We're not, on firing on all cylinders. Now's your chance to shine. So again, it touches on your last question first and foremost, but it's that sort of overall management of a side, not even just their starting 11 or the squad players, but it's that overall management that Lowe brings. In terms of the quality of football, I mean, I think it's now a case where players are coming in and they're signed up to a system, and we're finding players that fit into that, and they come in with a job to do, and they know their roles, and they can really bring it. And some of the stuff we've been playing is terrific. And I think naturally when you see Argyle going up, and trying to match teams like Premier League teams or Championship teams, it makes them attractive proposition to anyone that's watching them, any potential players that could be coming there or might be tempted to come there. So certainly, I think the style that Argyle are developing, and the brand of football we're bringing in, is at times more important than the result overall, because it's the long-term vision that Lowe's kind of part of, and it's certainly helping bring in high quality players and building an overall sort of ambition and ambitious aim at Argyle.
It certainly feels like that recently with a lot of clubs, and I would have probably said it Was Sunderland up until recently a club where, results are the be all and end all, if I'm completely honest. But then it did feel like because we've been taken over and there was like a plan being implemented with a new recruitment strategy and someone actually got appointed this week for that, that gives me a small bit of hope in a really bad run. Is the mood with Plymouth quite the same, that when you do go through like the bad run that you could say you may be going through recently, the fact that you have a long-term plan that will eventually give you a lot more cohesion, does that kind of allow the fan base to be a little bit more or a little bit less apprehensive and a little bit more hopeful, even if results aren't 100% going your way for weeks on end?
Yeah, I mean, the club have been terrific in their efforts to, open up with fans. We have forums, for example, on YouTube with Q&As, and they talk about their overall ambitions for the club. And as I say, I'm really not trying to pitch other podcasts on your show, but there is one with Simon Hallett on the Ornstein and Chapman show with Simon Hallett. It's I can't remember when, it's Business and Sport podcast, but it really sets out clearly what the aims of Argyle are, and he makes it clear from Q&As with fans that the academy is one of the most important things. Now, if you look at Devon, if you look at the likes of Ollie Watkins at Exeter, or at Aston Villa now, sorry, coming from Exeter, the location of Argyle is a negative overall in terms of getting players in, but it's also a positive in that there's a huge pool of players that they can develop and bring through. So I think that the club have made that clear. The objectives are to bring through academy graduates when they can. One of their own chants, for example, might become more of a common thing. But that has been the long-term ambition of the club for a long time, and fans are aware of that. And I think it's easy to buy into when that's the case, because exactly that, yeah, they might be, losing 2-0 on the pitch, but they're your players that are representing your city, and they've been there for a long time. I mean, we had I think famously Argyle had a goalkeeper crisis a few seasons ago, and one of the things that the positives of it were that Mike Cooper, who is our now keeper, fans were desperate to see him in action because he'd been fluttering around the outskirts of the team for a while. Now he's, in my opinion, one of the best keepers in League One, and it's been amazing to see his journey come through. And if you look at the likes of Ryan Lowe, for example, who could come through as well. It could be a really talented Luke Jeffcott. I think that's it's a clear ambition, so it's easy to get on board with, because the other thing is, if you show loyalty to young players and bring them through, if you do go down, which touch wood, none of us will be doing for a good couple of seasons, but if you do go down, then there's every chance they might stick with you as well. Whereas what we've had in the past is a lot of players come down for 1 or 2 seasons, and then as soon as we go, it's abandoned ship. Sonny Bradley, for example, went off to Luton, and even McFadzean, for example, he wanted to be up closer to family. So it is part of the issue we have. Whereas if you bring through your own, it does kind of combat that local thing, which is a major issue. The location is a major issue for Argyle, and I think the board are being pretty open about how they're going to combat it.
Is there a worry that because of how well Ryan Lowe is doing, and he is getting that reputation month on month where people are starting to look at him for championship jobs? There's been a few already this season. Is there a worry that all of that could unravel if Ryan Lowe goes?
I don't think so. I think to some extent it may make Argyle less attractive if Ryan Lowe goes. Mm-hmm. I think he's a pull factor, undoubtedly, to play for him and to play for him. And I think he is he's part and parcel of what comes with playing and going to Plymouth Argyle. However, what I do think is that Argyle are fairly well run, and I don't think you can say the same for a lot of championship clubs, especially the ones that tend to have a hire and fire policy. Not to name names of clubs, of course, but I think Ryan Lowe is a great manager overall, and with that comes research that he would carry out of a club, especially given what happened at his former club. So yes, there's a real issue if he goes, but I do think that he's bought into the vision of the club, and I do think that he's extended his contract along with his assistant manager. I do think that if you look at running a club sustainably, not sort of like Forest Green style sustainably, but if you look at running a club sustainably, I think Argyle are a really good model for that. And I do think that Ryan Lowe has bought into it, but also I think that he knows if Argyle lose 8 games on a row or 9 games out of 13, But fans aren't going to be calling for his head, because they can see that they're doing things right in the right way. Yeah, we drew 1-1 against Burton away from home in the last minute, but it happens when you're trying to get a win. And yes, we had a freak result against Charlton, but again, and I'm not trying to say this in a sort of small club mentality, because I do not think for 1 second that Plymouth Argyle are a small club, but I think that it's about the way that the board have been transparent about it, and also the fact that Lowe's been allowed to do what he wants when he wants in terms of overall style. And it's going to take time. It's going to take a bit of transition for all the players to buy into that. And I think the benefit that he has at Argyle is that fans are willing to give him time to do that. Whereas I don't think you could say the same across some League One clubs. I definitely don't think you could say the same against Championship clubs. And I think that job security is also a massive thing for any manager at the moment. And as I think it was Sir Alex Ferguson used to always say, any manager worth his salt will do good research about what job he's going to take. So I would hope that Lowe would do the same.
Talking about, we've really talked up sort of Ryan Lowe here, and then I've realised that he's got quite an extensive history with Callum McFadzean, who you mentioned sort of previously, obviously being at Bury, obviously spent last season at Plymouth Arygle. I'll make no bones about it. He's been criticised an awful lot throughout his time at Sunderland this season, and I would definitely say he's one of the players that has not really impressed, if I'm being kind, this season. But what did Plymouth fans make of his time down south? Because he got promotion with you, so...
Yeah, it was a strange one, because a lot of Argyle fans really took to him. And I have to be honest, I didn't. Now, he was a great attacking player. He was good going forward. And sort of in the sort of League Two, I think we were in at the time where he was going forward. He was, definitely an impressive footballer for us. He didn't really hit the heights, I think, that certain people thought he would in terms of, the way he performed overall. And he was at fault a lot defensively, which, didn't really help us. Now, the way we were playing, I mean, you're laughing, so I've clearly resonated with something that Sunderland fans are saying as well. The way we were playing was arguably too expansive and left them a bit high and dry. So, yeah, I mean, I'll be totally honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of him when he was at Argyle. I felt like, especially in away games, he was great offensively, but left us overly exposed. And, I think as well, we had, I'm pretty sure we had Gary Sawyer at the same time, at left back as well. I'm pretty sure they may have coincided, but I'm always one for a more slight defensive defender, ironically. So yeah, that was the way I kind of thought about it.
It's funny with McFadzean, you said he left us high and dry going backwards, and that's why I was laughing. I think that'll resonate quite loudly and clearly with Sunderland fans who've experienced the exact same. But funnily enough, one player that's probably impressed less than Callum McFadzean, which is not many of them, is that's also on our books and former Plymouth, is Remi Matthews. But obviously we spoke off air. He's not won us over at all, like in any way, shape, or form. But he's a bit of a hero down in Plymouth. Like what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, again, the sweet prince Remi Matthews, who I will hear no ill of. Yeah, I mean, he just basically he came on loan with Argyle under I think it was under the Derek Adams season, and I mean, I think as well a lot of the time with a loanee keeper. Now this sounds like a really really silly way of sort of saying it, but a lot of the time they can sort of be improved by who actually replaces them. So I mean, because you look back on the legacy of it and you go, well, yeah, what we had was actually great. Now, we had Matt Macy after, who's now at Hibs. We had Matt Macy come after Remi Matthews, and he just didn't have the same sort of level of height. So, no, Remi Matthews, I mean, he was one that Argyle fans were desperate to have back, absolutely desperate to have back. I mean, to the point of where I was on sort of I think it's Argyle Live now, but Argyle sort of Herald checking every single day if he was going to sign for us. He came on loan basically in 2017, and then kind of expanded in 2017-18 for us, and that is basically it. Really, he put in great performances, and he was absolutely loved down here. Or I say down here, like, you know, that was a season where we had Luke McCormick, Kyle Leverin, we had we signed a boy from Robert Tiloki or something like that, and then Remi Matthews came in on loan and basically made it his own. So, I mean, yeah, he was part of a team that got Argyle promoted. And I think, you know, as I say, the next season, I'm pretty sure Matt Macy was the one that came in. And, you know, a lot of the time, a legacy of a loanee keeper is secured by who replaces him. And it certainly wasn't you know, I think after that, we had Alex Palmer as well, who, I think, West Brom. And none of them were as good in our eyes. But, yeah, I mean, I actually think Sunderland should play him against Argyle just for the banter, just to let us have a moment to at least celebrate, even if we lose, seeing the sweet man again.
I think there might be an implosion if Remi Matthews plays on Saturday, because, like I say, I'll be as kind as I possibly can be, because he is a man. At the end of the day, he is a man, a human being. But it's fair to say he's chucked in like one goal every game, I think, that he's played for us. I don't think you'll get the wish on Saturday. Thankfully for us. In terms of the players that you've got just now, obviously the obvious one is the one we touched on is Jeffcott. Goals stick out a mile off when you're an opposition fan and when you're looking at other teams. But outside of Jeffcott, which sort of players would you think Sunderland fans should be most concerned by?
I mean, I think Danny Mayer is pretty integral to everything that Argyle do. You know, now a lot of the Argyle fans get slightly frustrated by Mayer in terms of, you know, his goals aren't, you know, quite the heights that we would expect, but, you know, his play off the ball and his play, these things he can create are, I would say it's like McGee delight almost, you know, in terms of you know, the work rate and endeavour and that moment of flair which fans enjoy. I think one of the you know, the most essential players for Argyle at the moment, you know, would be Joe Edwards, without a doubt. You know, I think he scored against Sunderland as well. He scored some really big goals for us. He's integral to almost everything we do. He can play. He's versatile. He can play almost anywhere in the pitch. He's got a good shot on him. Pretty integral to the team overall. You know, clear leader even just from looking at things. You know, passes the eye test almost every week. So I would say him as well. And then up top, you've touched on Jeffcott, but we've also got Niall Ennis who's coming through, and he's been in pretty good form. He scored a few against Blackpool. You know, he looks pretty sharp. He looks kind of the real deal, to be honest. I think a few Argyle fans are, you know, salivating at the prospect of him being the next sort of Wright Phillips / Ebanks Blake thing, which, you know, I think is really high praise and probably won't come to fruition. But he's certainly an exciting player. And the other one to look out for is Ryan Hardy as well. I mean, I know I'm just talking about the offensive players here as much as, you know, in terms of strike force, but Hardy is you know, I think you'll probably know from his time up here in Scotland as well. But I mean,
yeah,
he's a bit of a workhorse in terms of the amount he creates for teams. You know, he'll run till he's blue in the face, and yeah, I think he's got 6 or 7 assists this season as well. So he's certainly one that can lead the line well. I mean, I think you know, Kamara as well could be quite, you know, I think that midfield battle is going to be quite interesting. And yeah, I certainly think that, you know, in terms of, you know, Kamara and also the way that Argyle play at home, this is the thing. I think that teams must come down to Home Park and just know that no matter what the score is, a team's just going to keep attacking them. And I mean, even if, you know, it's a case where they're playing counter-attacking football, it's just hard to stop because they will just keep going and playing the same system and playing the same way. You won't get sort of long, you know, you'll get some obviously long balls and stuff, but it's always going to be that expansive attacking football in from the wings. So yeah, I mean, obviously with that comes the sort of danger men, which hopefully I've kind of outlined there.
In terms of the other way around, it feels like Sunderland don't have any good players anymore, but obviously I'm in a mood with them, so I'm going to say that. That's probably not the case. I don't want to say we desperately need to win, but I think we do, not just to qualify for getting into the playoffs, but also just to get some momentum going into the playoffs, because we'll probably scrape in anyway based on the failings of other League One teams. So going into the game on Saturday, it's kind of a win that we sort of need just for confidence, really. So which sort of players do you think could be the difference makers from our side? Like, where could we damage you? Which ones on paper are the ones that worry the most?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously you talked about going for strikers and the goals stand out for opposition fans. So I mean, Charlie Wyke obviously is the obvious name. God knows how many 20-odd goals he's got for you or something this season.
I think he's at 30
so,
now.
I say that just from there you go. So the amount of times I just see him crop up on Soccer Saturday, I'm like, well, there you go. Certainly the main danger man. I think, I've always liked Max Power. I've always liked him ever since he was at Tranmere as well. And I do think that left side, with Ryan Law's a great, exciting talent, but he's relatively new to the team. So I think there could be some joy there as well. If you were to go down there. I've always liked Lyndon Gooch as well, decent, solid performer for it. I think, Aidan McGiddy as well, obviously, but yeah. I'm actually not too sure. I think he's playing still. Is he injured?
He had a bruised foot, but he's back. He had a bruised foot, but he played against Blackpool, bizarrely, and against Accrington, I think. So he should be fit unless. But then Johnson did allude to a couple of injuries, so maybe he's one of them. I don't know.
I mean, for me, especially with following Scottish football as well, I mean, the man needs no introduction up here in terms of his overall performance, and the things he do are incredible. And I think even I apologize, I'm going to show my lack of Sunderland knowledge here, but I recall there was a time he was out. I can't remember your manager was trying to chuck him into the under 23s or whatever, and Sunderland just kind of Parkinson, and they just dropped like a bloody stone, and then he came back, and it's like a new player for you. And I do think that McGiddy is one that any side, regardless of who they're playing or what we're up against, he's just someone that can punish you with a moment of magic, whether it be from a dead ball or from turning someone inside out. So I mean, just on paper, they're the ones that stand out for me. But I do think that if Sunderland are going to win this game, then it'll be Argyle pretty expansive, and they'll be maybe exposed at the back, and there could be some joy on those wide areas. So that would be my call for it, because I think when we came and played you in January, it was it's actually not it's kind of a snatch and grab almost, which is unlike Argyle this season and unlike Argyle under Lowe. And I think that was maybe just testament to how Sunderland at the time were also flying, I recall. So it could actually be a reverse of that almost. But yes, it should be certainly an interesting game.
So last but not least, as always, my prediction. I'll go with first because I've started doing that this season. I've only got 2 right this season, which is horrendous form from me. I got it wrong last weekend. I'll probably get it wrong again. I'm not feeling confident, but then again, I don't think we'll get beat. So I'll take a really boring standard 1-1. But what would your prediction be before I let you go?
So this is the one that I was kind of like, I should write this down because otherwise I'll just make it up on the hoof. So the thing I wrote was just goals. I just think this game has got goals in it. Now, the reason being that I'm not going to say that a footballer is going to be on the beach. Argyle are mathematically safe, and Sunderland have got it all to do in terms of what they want to achieve this season. That being said, I think Argyle can beat anyone at home, just the way they play and the sort of the home form, and also the fact that Lowe's made it quite clear that he wants home park to be a bit of a fortress, and taking into account the journey as well. So I'm going to go with an ambitious. I can't not say that Argyle are going to win it, so I'm going to go with an ambitious 3-2. But to be honest, I do think it's one where the first goal is the most important, and I think whoever scores the first goal will win it. But I'm going to go 3-2 Argyle, and potentially my boldest prediction would be a 3-0 up to come back to 3-2 and a tense finish. But that just depends how much the black, because also Argyle haven't played midweek and Sunderland have, so it depends how draining that defeat has actually been as well. But that also implies that there's a lot to play for on the last day of this, or pretty much the last home game of the season for Argyle, which, let's be honest, there isn't. So you never know.
Perfect. Stephen, thanks very much for joining me, mate. Appreciate it. I would love to say that I'm confident going in to Saturday, but I'm not. But I'm sure we'll rekindle after Saturday and tell each other how bad each other's teams are, which is standard League One form, I think, these days. But appreciate you coming on, mate. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. I would love to say that I hope that you kind of go up, but from a totally selfish point of view, from a League One point of view, and from a selfish point of view, I think given the season that we've had, a full sold out home park with Sunderland fans there would be pretty good next season, and also from a Northern Argyle following point of view, and with a sort of football hat on as well, the idea of playing at going to the Stadium of Light as a fan, and also being having a relatively local game is quite appealing. So I don't really know how to leave it with you apart from hope it's a good game. And yeah, I think if you go up, great, and if not, then also great. I think, to be honest, I think a lot of League One clubs must be like that. A lot of League One clubs must be hoping to go up. Not for the banter and sort of Sunderland till I die Netflix series, which probably won't happen, but more for the if you take this season and how big Sunderland would be for the league when it could sell tickets, I would take you staying down. But don't at me, Sunderland fans, please.